It's 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, February the 16th, 2023. I call the special meeting of the Kingsville Independent School District to order. We'll have roll call. Joe Morales. Here. Martin Chapa. Here. David Garcia. Present. Joseph Ruiz. Here. James Glusing. Here. Delma Salinas. Here. And Brian Kupal is here. Let the record show there is a quorum of board members present, and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with Government Code Chapter 551, the State of Texas Open Meetings Act. We move to the moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one faith under God, one indivisible. All right, this meeting is being live video streamed, and we move now to item number 4, which is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Motion made by Mr. Garcia. Second. Seconded by Mr. Morales. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item number 5, public participation. Ms. Glenda, do we have anyone who has signed up to speak to the board?
No, sir.
All right, we move now to item number 6, which is new business. 6A, discussion and possible action regarding Kingsville ISD financial audit for 2021-2022. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Kupal, Dr. Pettis, members of the board. We are pleased to present good news for this fiscal year 2022 audit. The auditor is going to speak in just a moment about some of the details. Wanted to highlight that we do have a clean bill of health as far as the audit is concerned. We passed all the first ratings, so we will not lose any points as far as the audit is concerned, so that's good news. We have a $3.7 million increase to the general fund balance. Our current fund balance is $12.67 million, and we are required to have at least 90 days of operating expenditures, which, as you can see, is close to $8 million. A couple years ago, we were under that figure. We had close to $6 million in our fund balance, and we've really worked hard over the last 2 years to be good fiscal stewards of our funds, and at the same time provide what is needed for teachers and students and staff. So looking ahead, we have some challenges ahead that we've talked about before, but again, we are aware of that and we are looking forward. As you can see, this last year, we had $5.6 million of ESSER funds that were used. If we did not have any of those ESSER funds, we would have had a $1.9 million deficit this year. However, we are required to use these ESSER funds by 2024. We're required to use all our ESSER 2 funds up by this next year, 2022, 2023, and the remaining ESSER 3 funds in 2023, 2024. So projected of what we will use in ESSER funds, you see about $7.65 million this year, and then remaining ESSER funds for 2023, 2024 is $2.7 million. So we, again, are planning ahead for this decrease in ESSER revenue. Now, we were required to spend this money or lose it. So we have increased our expenditures significantly because, again, if we don't use these funds, they will not be available to us in the future. So we are doing things to address learning loss that we know that we will not be able to sustain in the future, but we already have a plan for how we're going to do that. So we wanted to show you that we are looking ahead and we are making sure that we can sustain our expenditures in the future. So this is the audit is going to be presented by Raul Hernandez. I just want to let you know this is really the beginning of our budget cycle. So now we know where we are. This is where our baseline is. We brought some big expenditures to you in the property and insurance that is going to come to you at the end of the month to approve that. Then we're going to, in the beginning of March, bring some other big expenditures that are highlighted in the facility assessment. Then after that, right now, TASB is going to be doing the pay study in March and April, where they will take all of our salaries of all our employees and positions, and they will compare that to other districts of similar size and demographics so that we can make sure that we are paying market value, and we will bring those to you as soon as that study is done. And then we can work on the rest of the budget once those big ticket items are taken care of. At this time, I will introduce Raul Hernandez to talk about the fiscal year 2022 audit.
Thank you. Everyone should have a copy of the audit report. I would like to begin on page 14 of the audit. And as you turn to the page, just for the record, the auditor's opinion is unmodified, and that translates into a clean opinion. Page 14 is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances for the governmental funds. In particular, I just want to cover the first column, which is your general fund. Under account 5020, you have total revenues, $30,772,532. As you look down to account 6030, you'll note expenditures were $26,770,728. You have some related transfers out of negative $263,304. So your fund balance increases by $3,738,500. You started with a fund balance of $8,938,388. So as Dr. Pitts mentioned, you ended with $12,676,888 for your general fund. Very good. Any questions?
Are we leaving? Are we about to leave page 14?
Yes, we are.
ESSER funds show up in other funds? Or would it be that 5,900 in the third column?
There are the other funds. Again, looking at the exhibit C3, you have the general, you have the debt service. These two are considered major funds. When a fund is not considered major by a formula, it's totaled into others. So as you open the book towards the back, you will locate these other federal and state grant funds, including the ESSER. So it is not included specifically, but just in the other funds.
Okay, so it's that column 3 where ESSER income is showing up for the revenue from ESSER, and those expenses accordingly would be in that column also. Okay.
Although let me add, that is not only ESSER, that also includes other title grants and everything else.
Right.
But the 5 million of ESSER, 5-6 million of ESSER is within that 10 million.
Right, exactly. If you go to page 67, you'll see the related revenues and expenditures for all other funds. So and they're summarized on the exhibit C3. Any other questions? If not, let's jump to page 53 real quick. Again, we're still talking about your general fund. I always like going to this page simply so you can see the column on the far right-hand side. These are your variances related to revenues and expenditures, specifically with account with the function 0011, as you move down to all the expenditures, the variance is all positive. In particular, 6030 account total expenditures, you'll note that you came in under budget for expenditures of 1,718,000. So, but every other related expenditure is under, and at the top, you'll note that even the revenues were over. So that results in your increase of almost $4 million actual. So again, very good work. Any questions? Our auditing standards require that in cases where we have related findings to an audit, that we must report them to you directly. There are some inserts here. We did report some findings. They've been addressed by management. We're satisfied with the response, and certainly it will accompany the report. So you'll note that they're inserts, but they're also part of the audit report. So it has been addressed. There's a response and a corrective action. So, and what it's related to is when you must have internal controls when you prepare your financial statements. Sometimes, you know, we're gonna find that there was a deficiency in providing the financial statements. So as auditors, we weigh this. Is it a deficiency? Is it significant? Or is it significant and material? Well, the TEA certainly would not want to see a significant and material finding. You don't have that today. It is only significant, which means it warrants that I bring this to your attention. And again, it's related to the year-end closing, reconciling, management providing us what we needed in addition to normal auditing standards. We're satisfied with what they gave us. We felt it necessary that it be given the attention moving forward, and it has been. The first rating will not be affected. That is good. The timeliness or untimeliness of the report will not affect your first rating as well. Any questions?
Yes, are you speaking specifically to page 85 and 86?
Yes, and it's also in the inserts.
Could we spend a minute on 85 and 86, please?
Sure.
On page 85. I had marked it up. All right. Item A1 halfway shows that. Yes, there was one significant deficiency I identified, but it's not a material weakness. Got it?
That is correct.
Explain to me what the next to last item means, dollar threshold used to distinguish between types A and B programs.
Yes, so you underwent a single audit. You always undergo a single audit when you spend more than $750,000 of federal monies. When you do that, we determine which are major grants and which are not major, based on provided guidance, if you will. So the threshold is based on what you did in the past, whether it's a new grant, we identify your A and Bs. When it is the A program, we test that. We test it for compliance, and we do that like we do any other kind of testing on a sample basis. And we've done that. So the findings are not related to the grants. It's only related to how you prepare the financial statement.
Gotcha. All right, moving on to page 86, and I think this is the larger discussion we kind of like to have here is that number one, I understand that GAAP and or the government accounting standard changes over the past number of years has severely complicated your role. And I get that. I know that. We are February end which is 6 months past the end of our fiscal year end. The reports were officially due to TEA 127. We don't get hammered as long as we have them in by 247. So officially, we're okay. However, in these findings, I've got a couple of questions on this. We go to the condition, page 86. It says the general ledger required a few audit adjustments. What's a few?
That's our judgment, the dollar amount. It was about maybe 8 to 10 audit adjustments. And may I say, it's typically that's good.
Okay.
But it's just the area that required the adjustments that brings us to reporting it inside the audit. It required a lot of analysis by management, and we did the same thing until we were satisfied that what they did to correct it was in accordance with CAP. So they did that.
So are the areas that were addressed in this report?
Yes, the inventory.
Okay,
So it's what we call fairly stated. When an auditor says your financials are fairly stated, that's the best you can hear from an auditor. That means you have a good, clean bill of health as far as how your reporting standards are.
With the next sentence in the same section, preparation of the entries and reconciliations and schedules were not timely. How untimely were they?
Because management spent an abundant amount of time trying to reconcile. We're here past January, so it's ideal. Last year we were here in January. Had we delivered in January, and you would be, well, it wouldn't be late, but you'd be on time as you have been in the past. So they needed the time. We gave them the time to correct this, because the option or the alternative was to say, let us have it the way it is. But audited standards would say it's not a clean opinion. So you don't want that.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm reading here between the lines and what I need your help with a bit is there was a point in time when we didn't have procedures and controls. And we've got the procedures. It's just that it didn't happen as timely as perhaps it needs to in order to keep everybody on track. In your opinion, and I understand I'm putting you on the spot here, is this a training? Is it a personnel not enough? Is it a misunderstanding? Is it something that you believe through this year's process has been addressed sufficiently so that it's not going to happen again?
It should not happen again. So, you know, and that's why we come in every year to perform the audit, because things change.
Yes, sir.
You know, I gave a good example in the management meeting that another audit we're doing, the internal controls were there. They were circumvented. In this case, it was more software related. So everyone certainly goes about their daily routines, and the internal control can only be as good as the people who are trying to safeguard assets. So I can't assure you that it won't happen again next year, but I'm confident that because it's inside the audit and based on what response they've given me, they're giving it the attention today
Okay, so we had a software issue
in the inventory.
it's now.
It has been addressed. I know they're working on this, so
Let
you
me,
might want to chime in, yes.
So let me provide a little bit more detail on what happened and what we've done to remedy it. So throughout the year last year, we have been bringing to you the issue where food service wasn't breaking even. And we met with food service several times during the year to make sure that we could find ways to cut costs, but at the same time feed our students. And then at the end of the year, we even brought to the board a transfer of $250,000 so that we wouldn't go into the red in food service, basically because you can't have a negative fund balance. So we were aware of the issue all year, but then when Sandy and I were going through the audit preparation process, we identified there was an issue in inventory, and we spent over a month going over it and with our CPA consultant as well too. And it turns out that it was nothing that we had done wrong. It was a software issue. We have a software partner that provides a report every month, and that report was incorrect. So I guess the silver lining, and that delayed our audit process. So the silver lining is that food service did break even this year. They barely broke even. So we have a $750,000 fund balance that we had planned to transfer at the end of this year, but we did not do it at the beginning of the year because we were waiting to see how food service did this year. So we are projecting that we will not have to do that fund balance at the end of this year. Now, the steps that we have taken in order to make sure that this doesn't happen again is every month now we are working with food service where we are reconciling the balances that that are reported on the software with the actual physical count and calculations by hand, or I guess by spreadsheet. So and because of that, again, it looks like we're running well for food service this year as well too. So again, Raul did say that in the end, we did have to go to the CPA and we enlisted the aid of our auditors as well. But if we hadn't uncovered that ahead of time and sent it to the auditor without noticing that error in the inventory, then it would have been a material finding.
With food services, when we started feeding students after school and things like that, when we stepped that up, that was probably part of the God work with this mother before, and whatever needs to be done, she's gonna get done.
Well, one of the things that she has really done that has helped our district is she's using USDA donated food commodities a lot more because those are free. Unfortunately, the problem with the software was with the USDA food commodities, and since we had been using them a whole bunch last year, to Ms. Butler's credit, it threw the inventory way up because the software wasn't recording the USDA commodities correctly.
Which leads me to my last question on that page 86. The outside CPA, who are we using there?
No, Snedeker.
Thank you. One other question I have deals with pages 67 and 68. And it goes specifically to this issue. That's where I believe we get the best detail. 240, column 240 of our food services. So we've had expenditures of 2,000,005, no, revenue of 2.5, expenditures of 2,352. So really a net of 182. We transferred 250. In hindsight, we didn't need to, correct?
Correct.
All right. So while it shows a net change of 432, we really, I mean, I don't think food service should necessarily be a money maker, but I wanted to at least break even, and it did, and almost 200,000 to the good. Is that a fair assessment?
That is a fair assessment, and even though we transferred $250,000 that, like you say, we didn't need to. I think their fund balance is healthier now than what it was before. I wouldn't go above this. We want a healthy fund balance for them is 60 to 90 days operating expenditures. They have a little more than that right now, but it gives them a little cushion this year that I feel confident that we will not have to transfer any money from the general fund this year.
Thank you. I'm done.
Let me just add one more thing. Back on page 12 of the audit. when you get to page 12, account 3410. So in total, we're talking about $209,000. Your finance department accounts for $23 million in transactions. But your auditing standards are strict. So when we calculate the materiality threshold, it's not very friendly to us. But in our judgment, we believed it warranted enough to bring this to your attention. So it doesn't get beyond that threshold and then it is material. So that's what this is saying. While it was discovered, it was corrected, it's certainly not material. But had it been, there'd be nothing we could do.
Gotcha.
So,
And I appreciate the information that you give us. I think it's all correct. The software that we found out was erroneous. Are we not going to use it anymore?
We've talked about this with food service already. There are many different components of the food service software. So inventory is only one part of it, and we are considering dropping that piece of it, but it controls so much else as far as her process that we really need it. There's others we could look at, but anytime you look at revamping your software, it is a huge process. And if we did something like that, it have to be done in the summer.
Well, no, I understand that, but I'm just making sure that in the future, for the inventory, we
Right.
don't depend, if we've already proven that it's wrong, we
Right.
should depend on it next year.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Correct, and we've been meeting very closely with Ms. Butler, and do you want to add anything? She's agreed that she's gonna definitely work much more personally looking at that software. You're welcome to come up here though, if you want to say.
But before she speaks, Dr. Pitts, but we've already got a procedure in place not to wait the whole year.
Yes.
So why would we drop a software that we spent some money on? It's just already.
Right.
When we're already monitoring it now on a maybe monthly basis.
We are, you're right, Mr. Garcia, and we do have a contract for the rest of this year. So we are monthly checking it, to make sure that issue doesn't happen again.
Thank you, Dr.
A couple points of clarification. We've tracked USDA via spreadsheet since 2017. I think the change, probably the most effective change, is not waiting until the end of the program year to share that with finance, which had been the process years past. And so we've expanded it to include not only our entitlement spending, but also our commercially purchased food, so that they have a detailed report that is backed up with source documents, and that's bills of lading, allocation, notifications from TA for the entitlement piece, and also the corresponding invoices. We have always reconciled that. USDA gets reconciled on a weekly basis because we take deliveries on a weekly basis. For us internally, we've relied on a spreadsheet, like I said, since 2017, but we're now sharing that spreadsheet with finance on a monthly basis. So while we work on fixing the inventory piece, because that software is overarching, and to get rid of it and learn a new system would be very taxing, and it affects not just food service, but it affects other programs. Our reports for CEP that keep breakfast, lunch, and dinner free for our students are tied to that software. We get our CEP data that we share with technology for our E-rate reports every year. And so we want to give the vendor an opportunity, now that the problem has been identified, to work with us in order to fix it, because it has been isolated to the entitlement piece. So we want to give them an opportunity to do it, because there are lots, well, there are not that many softwares out there, but we have a good relationship with the vendor. And so we're working together to try and fix it going forward. But we do have the checks and balances in place that we're now working a little bit closer with with finance on a monthly basis rather than waiting until the end of the program year.
I'm very relieved to hear that it's not creating additional work for anybody necessarily. I mean, it's something that you've already done and tracked on your own. And I know that you stay on top of food services. And so when we heard that, you know, there was kind of a deficiency periodically through the year, it didn't make sense. And I commend you for all of y'all, Sandy and Dr. Pitts and for getting to the bottom of that and having an answer going forward. So
Thank you.
I have a question. I don't think if you, so do you keep in touch with other school district?
Absolutely. That spreadsheet was created in conjunction with the child nutrition program at the Education Service Center.
Do you know if any other school districts had the same problem with the software?
Most school districts don't use, that I've spoken to in our region, either do back of the house manually, or figure out some other way. We still work with the program as far as inventory quantities. We just double check pricing through the source documents to make sure that we're kosher.
And some districts outsource their food service, you know, we don't.
No, I appreciate everything you do for us. I've worked with you before. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
I'd like to thank Ms. Butler, and I'd also like to thank Sandy Galindo and Dr. Pitts. I know many times I called them on a Saturday or even a Sunday, and they were up here working, trying, because they knew there's got to be more to this, you know, and so they really, really worked hard. Thank you.
Well, generally, we'll just kick and tie that balance. We don't even observe inventory. Like when I first started auditing, I'd be at an inventory in a warehouse or inside a refrigeration somewhere, counting, you know, packets. Well, we don't do that anymore because as you saw, it's not material to the total picture. But we're satisfied with what they gave us, that the balance that is, you know, listed here is correct. So, but nevertheless, it was the internal control process. And I can appreciate the discussions here that the internal control is what needs to be observed and, you know, monitored moving forward. Any other questions? Thank you.
thank you, sir. All right, board, we've heard the presentation by the auditor, and we've been given the financial audit for 2021 and 2022 to review. We now need action to approve the 2021 and 2022 audits. Is there a motion to that?
Yeah, motion.
Motion made by Mr. Chapa.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Ruiz. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Pettis does not have any items that need to be discussed in closed session. Mr. Maddox, to you.
And I just want to say a few words about the budgeting process. I have to commend everybody who's worked on the budget, not just the mathematical part, but also in making sure that we're spending our money as wisely as possible, so that we can bring to you an audit that at least shows building on our fund balance, because we are looking ahead to make sure we're not going to end up in a place that would be very, very negative. So I want to thank everybody, from the teachers to all the staff and all the leaders, to looking at every program and every resource with a fiscal mind, I guess fiscally minded. So, and thank you for the support from the board for whenever we do bring you something that we're all looking at, making sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. We'll continue to do that.
Nothing that can't wait till the 27th, Mr. President.
All right. A couple of housekeeping items then before we go forward. Number one, I'm confused. Okay. We have several of us going to Austin, and so we will not have a meeting next week. The Tuesday, our meeting is for the 27th or the 28th. Does anybody?
27.
27, all right. We go, and I know we were saying that at one point because, oh, it's the insurance expiration that we've got to address. All right. So our next meeting will be Monday, February the 27th. We will have a public hearing at 5 o'clock dealing with paper, and then we will have a kind of involved meeting that evening. The other housekeeping item, just to announce to the board, on Saturday, February the 25th, is the annual Community and Schools Legends Banquet or whatever. I have a table with room at it. If anyone is interested in going to that, please let me know. Communities and schools have been very good to this district, and I'd like for us to do our best to support them in their fundraising efforts if we could. And certainly personal commentary has absolutely nothing to do with the whole board. If there is no further items, if there are no further items to come before this board, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Or y'all want to stay? All right. Motion made by Mr. Morales. Seconded by Mr. Ruiz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned at 6:06 p.m.